Hey, everybody, welcome to Robert Fierro Tarot, formerly, but now Wild Raven Tarot. I'm being joined today by Hunter Salazar for this episode of Epithets on my channel. Epithets is a series I started talking about different divine beings. I work with two very specific ones. You guys have heard me go on endlessly about them, and I'm sure I'll be going on endlessly in the future. But tonight, Kalima is on the scene. Hunter Salazar is a devotee, and he is going to give us a little insight into what exactly that means and who she is. Hi, Hunter. How you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing today?
Pretty good. We really didn't get a chance to talk backstage, you guys. Um, so this is new to me just as much as you. I'll let you guys let me say hello to a couple people. We've got Selena. Selena does a Thursday night show with me. She's one of my besties.
Okay.
And um, we got Jamie's Cowboys. What up, Jamie? Joan Miranda. You got to say it like that. It's kind of the law. And Maru, people are just trickling in, and I know they're going to be dropping in. I've been advertising this all week, wanting people to check it out. Hunter, Kali is the deity you work with. I work with Hecate and Hermes. How did you first meet Kali?
So I would say it probably started around 12 years ago. I was interested in Buddhism first. I started studying Buddhism first. I wasn't raised in any kind of religion. My parents are basically devout atheists.
Mhm.
But Buddhism kind of caught my attention, so I started studying that. I studied that for years. I didn't actually start studying Hinduism until I was about 21, and I'm 33 now. But I started to listen to audiobooks that were by Paramahansa Yogananda's disciple, Swami Kriyananda. And it was just an offhanded comment in the book where Paramahansa Yogananda asked, Mother, what happened? Divine Mother, what happened? And I was like, Divine Mother, what's that? How did that didn't work in my like Western brain? Like, what is Divine Mother? So I started to research, and something just clicked, and it felt like very familiar, yet yet new at the same time. If that makes any sense, almost like I had been on this path in a previous life,
Mm.
and I had known Kali for lifetimes. But yeah, that's kind of how it started. I've had a number of experiences with her ever since then, but I'd say it kind of started around 12 years ago. And Kali is a Hindu goddess. She's usually considered as very Vedantic, where we kind of view everything as pieces of Kali. So like everything is like one multiverse, part of the same whole. And Kali is kind of like the godhead, but like everything else is her body. So it's almost like everything is just various masks that Kali wears. So I'm Kali, you're Kali, and everybody's Kali. And the different gods are Kali, animals, plants, material, matter, energy, the various universes that make up this kind of multiversal tree. It's all Kali.
Right.
So it's all like one thing, and that's Kali.
Got it. Um, when you started working with her, how did that go? I mean, did it feel foreign at first? How long did it take you to get comfortable with it?
I would say that I got comfortable pretty early on. Like I said, everything just clicked like all at
Right.
once. So I didn't really need like a big introduction, but I've been studying Kali for years and years and years and learning more and more about the different phases of consciousness that are part of Kali, the different quantifiable pieces of this reality, this Maya, this illusion that's also delusion. Because we think that we're separate from Kali, and that's part of the illusion of this reality. I would say really when I started to get really close to her is through meditation. When I started meditating, I started learning more about meditation, and I started getting to know my specific soul that exists in this body. Um, Doorways just opened up between me and her, and there were more experiences that came later as I kept on meditating, as I developed my practice, as I did puja after puja. And puja is like a ritual of dedication to the god or goddess. But yeah, so it was, it's a gradual process. And I think it's a process that'll never really stop. But I've been getting closer and closer to Kali over these last 12 years.
So let's talk about You said she encompasses everything. I get that. I work with Hecate. She's got at least 300 faces, 300 names. It's very hard to quantify deity in words, especially one as complicated as this. I'll tell you what I know, and you take it from there.
Mhm.
I know that a lot of people got their first view of the goddess Kali from Indiana Jones. And they,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the truth. That movies have a tendency to paint goddesses, especially powerful goddesses, in a dark way. Uh,
Yeah, because we're kind of raised in a patriarchy, and it's not that's not readily apparent unless you're kind of aware of it. Because it's not obvious in Western society that's patriarchal until you kind of look at society from a universal mindset, like with Kali. But continue.
no, that is what's going to be my next point. Patriarchy pretty much just slams on any feminine power, especially here in the Western world. I know that Kali deals with time and inevitability. Um, I know that one of her faces deals with vengeance and justice. And after that, I'm kind of free flowing here. So take it from there, my friend.
Yeah, so Kali, so Kala is time, and Kali means it both means the conqueror of time, but also the feminine form of time, if that makes any sense. So it's think of all of time. We're born into time, and we exist in time, and then we pass out of time, and then we're in a new layer of time. So she is almost like the canvas in which we exist, and she also helps us kind of conquer our own self, our own ego, and our own limitations, so that we too can be conquerors of time in a way. She's very much a goddess of transformation. She's a non-dual goddess, which means that so there's a good and very basically there's good and evil sides to her. Since she's everything, she's also the bad stuff. But the bad stuff is more as a smaller piece of her. The piece kind of towards the outer edge, if you will, this infinite edge. But since she encompasses all these things, we kind of have to come to terms with that. There's no like devil figure. There's no like necessarily evil one figure that is a counterbalance to her. Since she is her own counterbalance. Uh, Go ahead.
No, you were just sparked something right there. A lot of us view the one image of her holding the severed head with the weapon in one hand, stomping on a body with their tongue hanging out. There's a tale behind that, and it's not what everybody thinks it is. Um, I'm hoping that you'll be going into that too.
Yeah, yeah. So I have her behind me. So the heads, they represent different things. So they could be represented as demon heads because she's a known for basically killing demons or rakshasas or asuras. So they represent demons' heads, but they also represent devotees' ego that they offered up to her. She basically offering their small ego and embracing their soul. So it could also be devotees' heads. It can also be negative thoughts that we've given up that weren't serving us, and then we offer those negative thoughts to her, and she takes them from us, and she's so proud of us. She wears it around her neck like a necklace. She is standing on. She well, also the heads represent the different letters of the Sanskrit alphabet too. But she's standing on Shiva. So Shiva, Shakti, and Shiva are kind of two sides to the same whole. You don't have Kali without Shiva, and you don't have Shiva without Kali, but they're kind of the same thing. So Shivites and Shaktas, which I'm a Shakta, we worship Shakti, are kind of like the same thread, the same current, the same shamanism. But she is the energy, the power of God. um it's hard to break this down, but she is the power of God, and Shiva is the soul of everything. So Shiva's the soul, and then everything that all the expansive energy and all the energy it takes to expand to become everything, that's what Shakti is. So she's standing on her husband because the soul needs the power, and the power needs the soul. But she's also holding a trishula, which is a trident, and the trident represents the three gunas. So Raja Guna, Tama Guna, and Sattva Guna. And these three kinds of energy make up everything in the multiverse. Tama Guna is dark, torpor, dullness, kind of fear. And Rajas is restlessness, activity, passion. Um, the emphasis is on activity with Rajas. And then Sattva is purity, clarity, clearness, also intelligence and higher vibration. So her holding the Trishula, the trident, means that she controls these three energies that make up everything. They don't control her. That's why she's grasping the pitchfork, basically. And there's this saying that if you, so there's a saying that if Shiva doesn't have Shakti, then he's Shava, which is a corpse. So it's kind of emphasizes how there are two sides to the same coin and they need each other, but they're one being. We understand them as being one being ultimately. But yeah, so depending on which statue you're looking at or what form you're looking at, it can mean various different things. There's different symbols. If she has her left foot forward, she's Smashana Kali, or Kali of the graveyard or cremation grounds. If she has her right foot stepping forward, then she's like Dakshinaswar Kali, which is Kali of boons and blessings. But yeah, did you have any questions based on any of that?
No, but I would like to show this real quick. Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
Yeah. So that is the result of a puja that me and my friends held a few weeks back. There's a lot going on here.
Define the word puja for us.
Puja is like a
Puja.
ritual.
Okay.
It's a ritual of dedication and worship. So we all there's a lot. So there's a strand of jasmine around her neck. That's a traditional kind of offering for Shakti or Kali or goddesses in general. Is that string of jasmine? The coconut that you see wrapped in red cloth.
Hmm.
That is another form of Kali. It's kind of the form of offering, and we're kind of deifying that coconut and as a part of her. We also kind of offered negative thoughts by slicing these limes in half and then kind of putting cum powder on it, which is this red powder that's made from like a nut, I think. And that's kind of us offering our negative thoughts and relinquishing them over to her so she can process them because we can't always process them. The mango is an offering, and the sari or the red and yellow cloth around her, that is kind of like clothing her, like we're clothing God, we're dressing God, we're honoring God in that way.
Hmm.
And then the kind of a strand of fake flowers around her, that's also just another offering. She usually takes offerings of mangoes, limes with cum powder on them, like dark red apples. Usually, we didn't have any dark red apples that day, and various things that we just offered in general. We have a number of incense burning, so we have Ma Kali incense. I think we also had sandal incense, and we had another kind of incense. But sandal and Ma Kali incense and black gold incense are all incense that are usually offered to her. Those are kind of like her three incense in essence.
Got you. This is gorgeous.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of like my little daily puja that I do before meditation. I might recite Om Kling Kaliki Namaha, and I might recite that again and again as I'm kind of pouring various kinds of water on her. So I pour Ganga Jal on her, which is water from the river Ganga, and I also pour Orris water onto her, which is a very kind of holy water, and I'll also pour rose water onto her in spoons. What you're seeing in the middle there is basically a kind of like a little ghee lamp, but I usually use puja oil instead of ghee nowadays because it's easier to work with.
Uh,
And yeah, we might pick that little lamp up and move it around in front of her and in kind of a circular fashion, kind of like tracing the edge of her arms and kind of offering light in that way. Light is also, like puja lamp light, is also thought of as kind of a gateway or kind of a doorway to her dimension in which she can observe us, and then we can kind of access her through the fire, basically. But yeah, I try to keep flowers on the altar behind me, and yeah, I carried out a puja every day. But the pujas can be as complicated or as simple as you want them to be, as long as the intention is there and the desire to worship is there. What you just had on the screen was that was a puja that me and this lady did at her house fairly recently. but she has never done a puja with that particular statue of Kali, but we used that one that day. And she has a number of things around there that we use to offer, and she's actually more of a, I would say she's been doing this a lot longer than me, so she knows more than me about this. But yeah, we that's a puja that we performed at her house, I think a couple weeks back.
Thank you, Maru. Maru is the best mod on YouTube. If she will have something up as soon as we say it. She's giving us the definition of puja and breaking it down for those in the crowd. So, um, there are different faces of Kali, different names. Can you tell us a couple of those names and
Yeah.
why they are differentiated?
So two of the ones that I use quite often are Dakshineswar Kali, or the Kali of boons and blessings, but also Smashana Kali, so the goddess of the graveyard and cremation ground. So that particular form of Kali is is kind of in charge of the liminal spaces between areas, between dimensions, between universes. In a graveyard or a cremation grounds, she helps us feel ourselves beyond time
Mm,
while being in time. She also helps us, there's little blessings that you can get from Smashana Kali or Kali of the cremation grounds, but they're usually just of spiritual nature. A lot of people will do pujas or do very specific rituals with Kali in cremation grounds for negative things, like basically cursing somebody or kind of reversing the magic that somebody did onto you. But I usually don't. I usually don't work with Kali that way in cremation grounds. Mine is more kind of trying to feel the various universes that kind of intersect at a graveyard or cremation ground. And it's funny because the whole earth is really a graveyard, because I mean soil is built I mean it's not built, is made of like dead things,
yeah.
and soil is everywhere. So in a way the whole earth is a cremation ground or a graveyard. the what makes cremation grounds or graveyards significant is that people go there to think about death. They go there to remember, and they go there when they're being, usually very serious, very contemplative. So all that energy that we kind of conjure when we go into a graveyard, all of that creates a certain space, and that space is very liminal. It's very in between universes, like I said. Um, so there's a name of Kali with matted hair, dreadlocks. There's various names for Kali, but those are the two that I use the most: Smashana Kali and Dakshineswar Kali, or the Black Goddess Kali.
That sounds very similar to the way I work with Hecate. She's a liminal goddess, goddess of graveyards in the spaces in between things. So I get what you're saying. I have, I do work with darker goddesses, quote unquote. I hate that phrase, darker goddesses, because there's always a bright side. Can you tell us about Kali's lighter sides?
So it's very hard for me to view Kali as anything other than being
Whole.
light.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's because the vision that she kind of opened, so I can look into my third eye and see her in her dimension anytime that I want. Over time, as I got closer and closer to her, this vision of what she looks like in the astral realm, kind of started to be created within my brain, almost like she was giving me little pieces until it was a whole vision. And now that doorway is just open. If I looked into my third eye, I can see it whenever. But the way that she looks, she doesn't actually look like the statues. All the stuff on the statues, and all, like, it's all symbols for like trying to hint at her
Right.
at her nature and what she is. The way that I see her in her realm is she has this giant kind of jungle planet in her lap, filled with light beings, very tall, like 7, 8 foot tall beings, just made of light. But she also, it's in this planet is in her lap, and she is just this vaguely feminine outline, but just this huge being emitting light. And then kind of from her body, it's kind of like a pale red. It's not like super red, but it's like a white red that she's just
Right.
emanating from her constantly. And this light is going into various dimensions. It's going to various worlds, and it's going to her devotees, and it's going everywhere, really.
It's going
But
everywhere.
yeah, it's hard for me to see her as something other than that light being, if that makes sense. And it's hard for me to think of her as anything but positive, but because I have certain limitations in myself to where I can't understand or see her in her entirety. I can only see really the good side. But it's hard for me to see a murderer as also Kali or
Yeah,
something like that. Like it's, but I'm biased, so it's, and I'm also very limited.
yeah.
Um, does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, it does. It brings up the point that humans and our minds can only comprehend so much. Um, we cannot comprehend or see divinity in its true form because I believe it would kind of fry our brains. So they make it palatable to us um, i- in these ways. Um, Hecate Sotera is pure energy, pure soul, pure spirit. So I get where you're coming from. She is light. She is dark. She's everything to me, the same way I see that Kali is to you. And I admire your devotion there. What would you say to somebody who thinks they're being called by Kali and doesn't understand what's happening to them?
I think it's important to figure out what's calling you. Do you mean call? Do you mean called in the sense that they're actually being called, or are you talking about like they're drawn to
I
Kali
call
kind of?
it being drawn. I call it being gathered. Um, when the gods gather their flocks, so to speak. I work with Hermes too, so I view people as flocks, kind of. Um, w- I know that recently, over the past few months, because of the work I do, um, I'm a full time tarot reader and oracle, but because of that, I make myself available to different deities to pass messages. It never occurred to me that there could be a being like Kali willing to pass messages on. And I'm thinking, was I imagining it? Was I imagining it? But everywhere I turned, more and more and more. And just when I had myself convinced that, nope, you're imagining it, I got your name sent to me. I was like, okay, maybe I'll look into this a little more because the beings that have been called to me lately are beings like the Morrigan, Santa Muerte, Kali, um, beings of change and transformation. So that tells me I'm undergoing a major transformation now, too. But as a messenger, I'm relaying that to other people and they're experiencing that transformation in themselves. So, what would be signs that she's making herself known?
So we're in an ascending age.
Ooh, I
We're
love
in
that word.
Dwapara Yuga, which means we're coming out. So most Hindus think that we're in Kali Yuga. Paramahansa Yogananda and his line of gurus kind of calculate the yugas as much smaller pieces of time because usually a yuga will be like hundreds of millions of years. But so Paramahansa Yogananda and his lineage teaches that actually the yugas are very small, and we're actually in Dwapara. We're in an ascending age. So as we're ascending, the divine feminine is going to become more apparent, more appealing, and the divine feminine is going to call more people, and it'll call men and women alike. I think it's so I know a lot of people got into Kali because like she, from lack of a better term, she's very metal. So she's very, so
Indiana
like
Jones. Yeah, there you have it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so a lot of people are drawn to her because she's like, they're like, ooh, look at this dark, crazy, feminine goddess. I love it so much. And there's nothing wrong with that. I, I I was not called in that way, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think that it's a little bit surface level,
Yeah.
and people aren't understanding that everything that you view, like the images that we see of Kali, that's she's only been worshipped like that for about 800 years. Previously, she, for thousands and thousands of years, she was just a
Wow.
downward pointing triangle with a dot in the center. But neither one of those things is any less of Kali. It's just easier to identify her like in a human form and really worship her because of the image that we have. I think that if somebody feels drawn to Kali or they're interested in Kali in general, I think it's probably time for them to look more deeply. and try to figure this goddess out. You can do something as simple as lighting a little candle and repeating a Kali mantra, Om Kling Kali Ki Namaha, and just repeating that again and again and again, and just lighting a candle and putting that on your shrine or altar or a table, and you can just draw a triangle on that candle. But I think that we have to understand what part of us is being drawn. Are we intellectually drawn to her? Are we aesthetically drawn to her? Are we spiritually drawn to her? We have to understand our own motivations before we go deeper. But it's important to wherever you start from to go deeper and deeper, because the closer that you get to Kali, the closer you're getting to understanding your own soul, and you're going probably going to go through a time of transformation to where your spirituality will change and your interests will change. But it'll all seem very chaotic for a little while, but then everything will level off and it'll start to feel like she's your mom, like she's home, and that there's this warmth from her that just increases in its intensity as you get closer to her. But my overall recommendation is just dive deep, keep on learning. There is a book called The Black Goddess of Dakshineswar. That is a very good book on Kali to start with. It has a whole bunch of information, and um, it has mantras. It has how to do pujas in it, and you start to learn more about the background behind Kali, like how she's worshipped and what she represents. But there's all kinds of books out there that are very useful. But just like read, because the more that you
Right.
read, the more you can probably understand.
Well, that's why I do these shows. Knowledge is power. And I know you do your shows to spread knowledge. I see you on social media. Um, I understand why I'm being called. It's the time aspect, the inevitability. I do have an illness, so that is time and death are forefront in my mind right now, and they have been for several years. But I'm not scared of those things anymore. I've been living with this for over a long time now, so the panic of, well, shit's gonna happen isn't there like it used to be. Now I'm able to focus on living and becoming who I'm meant to be instead of focusing on who I'll never be. So I understand why I'm being called that way. Um, Same thing with Santa Muerte. There's transformation happening. I need to cut a lot of things out of my life, and I have. Kali, the aspect of time, I just keep getting drawn back to that. Can you tell us more about that? Go deeper into that.
So in Tantra, two kind of ideas kind of came together that weren't originally together. So Vedanta and so Tantra is the acknowledgement of the sacred, that this world is very real and that we're here for a reason. We're here to experience this. We're here to transform ourselves. But there's no hierarchy of like souls or gods or anything's better or worse. It's all
Right.
kind of like a sphere. Instead of a lot of Native American cultures will also view not human beings at the top, but as part of a sphere ecosystem, kind of a spiritual energy. Tantra is a world affirming, which is like, this world is God. God's right here. There's nothing to necessarily do but experience it. And
Mm.
then also Vedanta kind of got combined. And we kind of get to Advaita Vedanta, but Vedanta is just like a non-dual way of looking at the world and time and space. But there is a hierarchy in Vedanta where there is like God isn't just here, but God is immanent, but also transcendent. So God being transcendent means that the Godhead is somewhere else in Vedanta, whereas in Tantra the Godhead is here. We're in Godhead right now. These two kind of came together to form, I would say, an interesting conception of time. So everything that is going to happen has already happened and is happening right now. Everything that used to be is also happening right now in Tantra. In Vedanta, where there is a point that we reach where we reach moksha, we meet liberation. But that point hasn't happened yet, so it's still in the future. That is a point we're trying to get to. Whereas in Tantra, it's already happened and everything's fine. So I'm very Vedantic and also tantric in the way that I think. I think that our understanding of time is very flawed. It's very limited, and I think that when we when we reach various levels of realization, time we start to view time differently. It starts to feel less like a flat circle and more like a sphere of influences influencing each other.
Hmm.
Um, I think that anybody who's called to Kali or feels like a drawing to Kali, um, it's it's almost like they've reached a point in their life where time is starting to become more valuable, and you need to try to evolve spiritually in order to reach a higher state, and that's probably why you've been drawn to Kali at this time. I'm just guessing, but it's probably time for you to make a major transformation in your life, and I would say the time aspect is the time is now, basically.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know. When I say I'm called to these gods and goddesses, it's because of my work with Hermes. I'm basically just hearing whispers. Hunter is swimming in it. Okay, I'm scratching the surface. I'm just hearing through my guides what's going down. All right, I have intermediaries. He's got that direct connection. There's a big difference in what we're talking about. Questions are being asked. Um, the
Oh,
first,
let me say this before because I've been meaning to say this. Santa Muerte and Kali have very similar energies, extremely similar. And in a strange way, Odin also has a similar energy, but it's different. But Kali feels very big to me. Maybe because she's big for me, but
yeah,
she feels like she's huge. Whereas
humongous. Yeah,
my connection to other gods and goddesses, they feel smaller to me. But I think that that's probably due to my own limitations as a human being. But Kali feels very big for me. Anyway, you were gonna get to the questions that they were mentioning.
I was, but I'm gonna say this. You said Odin. I I do have a relationship with Odin in the sense that he is conflated with Hermes, and the ravens are my totem animal. And when I do my prayers and meditation, sometimes I'm focusing on my oracular work, so I am calling to, I don't want to say praying to, but I am calling to Hugin and Moonin, um, the ravens. So yeah, there is that. Let's talk about the questions. Faye of the Forest asks, I've not seen any books on Kali, any you could recommend. There is a buttload, first of all, let me just tell you. I went looking for them. What are your good beginner books for people?
Yeah, the one that I mentioned earlier is something that I'd highly recommend. So Kali, the Black Goddess of Dakshineswar. I think I might even have it. I don't think I have it available right now. But if you type in Kali, the Black Goddess of Dakshineswar, you can find that book. Another book I would recommend, especially if you're kind of interested in the more of the left hand path with Kali, is Approaching the Primordial Dark Goddess through the Song of Her 100 Names. There's a whole bunch of names in here. I don't use very many different names for Kali, but there's a whole lot of mantras and names in here, and this is really a left-hand path book of working with Kali, but it's also
Hmm.
it's very Eastern. It's not it's coming at it from an Eastern context. It's not coming at it from a Western context. Or I would so I'd be careful about getting books by by people in the West who are writing about Kali and they're connecting her to sex magic and stuff like that. Like that is a part of her, but I think people over fetishize her in the West,
Right.
and it's not. It becomes not getting closer to her or understanding her. But this book, I would highly recommend. That one's a good one. And like I said earlier, the Black Goddess Abductionist War. I would also, honestly, I would subscribe to For the Love of Yoga with Nish. That is a podcast I'd highly recommend. He has like at least 100 hours worth of talking about Kali in the various episodes. But he's a devotee that I've learned a lot from, and I actually connected to people in Texas through one of his WhatsApp groups. But For the Love of Yoga with Nish, yeah, that listen to that podcast, and he recommends all kinds of books. Now, if you are very much interested in this, I would say in the spiritually positive side of Kali, I would highly recommend. Let me grab this.
Yeah, I have
So
audiobooks, you guys. Go on audiobooks and look. There's some really good ones.
yeah, and so Sri Ramakrishna, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he was the devotee of Kali, probably like the greatest devotee of Kali. But he's also considered um, as an avatar of Kali, or he was before he died, I think, in the 1890s. But he was basically Kali on Earth as a human being, and the more and more people are drawn to the Sri Ramakrishna movement. But I highly recommend the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That is more working on the spiritual evolution side rather than the magic or the puja
Right.
side. But yeah, yeah, those are some recommendations
That's
that I
a
would go with.
good point you bring up. A lot of people, quote unquote, get into goddesses, like you said, because they're metal. Um, but I don't focus on the witchcraft side. I don't focus on the magic side. It's there if I need it. I know that. I've been practicing witch since I was 15. I'm 55 now. I'll be 55 next month, actually. Yay. Um, I I don't really focus on the witchcraft part. I focus on the spirituality part, the inner alchemy part, the transformation. And I think that is something that people miss with Kali. Um, she defends people. She's the demon slayer, like you said. My favorite Kali tale that I've come across in doing research for this was one where she had to lap up the blood to keep the demon from respawning. Uh,
Raktabija, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
Raktabija. He represents desire and how desire can just increases. So if you feed an addiction of any kind, it just multiplies. But through devotion to Kali and offering those desires up to her, she can take them from us and then process them herself rather than them just multiplying within us. If that makes sense.
yeah. And her husband was who?
Shiva.
Shiva. Now, uh, my question is, or actually, it's the other tale I really liked, was when she was in her dark form, fighting, tongue hanging, going after the demon. After everything was done, and Shiva, the only way he could stop her was to lay down, and she trampled him. And it was after she realized what she had done. She threw her weapons down, screamed, and then transformed back into her lighter self. Am I retelling the tale accurately?
Yes. And there's a whole lot of symbolism there. Um, so yeah, so that is an accurate retelling. It also gets into the fact that that moment when she steps on Shiva and she realizes it, that's kind of like a realization. That's kind of like enlightenment, moksha, mukti. Um, there is when power and soul kind of meet at that intersection, that's what Kali is, and that's the moment of enlightenment. And there's various kinds of enlightenment, but that moment is very special in the story, and it's so a lot of people think that she's sticking out her tongue because so girls in India when they make a mistake they might stick their tongue out. Um, so it could be that she feels like that moment of realization that she's stepping on her husband, that moment of kind of liberation or mukti. That moment is very special for all of us and it happens for all of us. But she's also one way to understand her sticking out her tongue is that she's showing her ferocity and she's showing the power that God has to change this world and to operate within this world. And when I say God, I also mean Kali, but it's kind of like crossing
The
the
unified, yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I think that those two stories, like I said, the other one represents desire, but did these things actually happen in space and time? I think so. I don't think the second one is purely symbolic. The first one, I think that she actually did fight a demon, but it also represents desire. But so I think that both things can be true as far as if it literally happened.
I know that you touched on the people who take her worship to the darker side. Um, that's with any divine being. Somebody recently made a comment about, well, there's a book by Santa Muerte. Cressida Stone, Dr. Cressida Stone wrote a book, The Secrets of Santa Muerte. But in it, she was telling this tale of one of her devotees who took it to the bad side and used the magic and power she granted him to bring death to people. He actually sacrificed a child. But the whole point of that tale was the bill comes due. She payment needed to be paid, and it was not a good payment. When you call on those dark forces like that, that aspect of any deity, I believe you're going to have to pay some form of bill at the end. And I know thoughts like that with Santa Muerte and Kali, the blood and death, can scare a lot of people off. They're not willing to look past the surface. But there's an aspect of Hecate. I can't remember it. I'm not going to try to say it because it's like a 12-syllable name. It basically means the goddess wearing golden sandals, standing in hell, drinking blood. Um, it creates a vivid image. All right, just sitting there chugging blood. But this is the same goddess who is the creator of souls in my mythology, my religion. Um, the gods are everything all at once, good and bad. It's us as humans that take it to the place. What is your opinion on retribution?
So there, if you're going to do a specific kind of puja to get Kali to do something like something negative, you can do that, but you have to do everything just right, and you better make sure that you have the right kind of payment, and you better be very sure about what you're doing, because even if she ends up doing something that you want her to do that's very negative, um, you're still going to get the negative karma from it. She's not going to take away your negative karma. And then you will have to, pay the bill, like you mentioned.
Yeah,
I think that anybody who worships Kali and tries to get her to do negative things, I think that they don't really care about Kali. And
thank you.
I don't think that they really. I think that they're probably pretty materialistic, and they probably are attached to this world in some way. And they don't really want to let go, and they can only see Kali through that kind of filter. I don't think that those kind of people are really ready for Kali, and I
Yeah,
don't think that they're dedicated. Because I've never imagined in all these years trying to get her to do something negative. And if you're just doing pujas to honor her, or if you're just trying to get, asking her for blessings or to bless other people, you can do a whole lot of things wrong in the puja, and it won't be bad karma. It won't be like any kind of negative retribution if it's all positive. But yeah, like I said, you have to do everything just right if you're going to get her to do negative things, for sure.
yeah. If you're asking any deity to do something harmful, that's on you. And it just bothers me when
Yeah.
people only see the gods in that aspect. They only see a dark goddess as a blood drinker or a warrior. Well, she's a warrior for a reason. Okay, she's a defender, the trampler of demons. I love that one. I keep going back to that as protector. A lot of people in chat were saying they're drawn to the energy of Kali because of her fierceness, her fierce feminine protective energy.
She's a very strong and appropriate symbol for female empowerment. And I mean, so just like males aren't any less collie than females. We're kind of like we're both equally collie, but she's a strong symbol for female
Mhm.
liberation that I think that she approves of. So I
Yeah.
that's the vibe.
It took me. Here's a good question I have for you. I'll give you an example of what I mean before I ask it. Um, I, as a Hispanic Mexican American, at first was leery about working with a Greek goddess and a Greek god. I thought, well, I don't have the right to do that. That's bullshit. I want everybody to know that. You don't have to be of Indian or Hindu descent to follow this pantheon, to follow Kali, to follow Shiva. Um, I do agree with what Hunter just said. Learn and be conscious of who you're learning from. Do your research. Okay. I've had a lot of books cross my path about Santa Muerte, but they never resonated until Dr. Stone's book came out, and I just love it.
I
Um,
might have that book. I have a number of books by, so I have this bad habit of buying way more books than I can read in a lifetime.
Me too.
And
Oh my gosh.
it's not like I can learn them through osmosis or anything like that. Like I can't absorb the information unless I read them. But I just don't. I don't have the time to read the hundreds of books that I just bought.
Right.
Like, and I to where I've gotten to the point where I told myself I can't buy any more books. I really cannot. Like I was gonna recommend one book real quick. Um, so if you're looking for another positive, kind of another positive spiritual book that also teaches you about meditation and helps you kind of get closer to the goddess, I'd also recommend this book. It's 112 meditations. You can get it for $9 on Amazon. But this is basically within this book is a conversation between Kali and Shiva, Shakti and Shiva, and we're also learning about meditation in this book. So 112 meditations. This is a tantric text that went into English. But yeah, going back to your point. I think that I think that every I think that souls are not just born into one ethnicity again and again and again. I think that we're born into every ethnicity at one point or another. We and I think this is something that Nish said. He said the spiritual heritage of India is everybody's heritage. That the lessons and the gods are for everybody. They're not just for somebody who's Indian. And I think that applies. I can't say that it applies to every system because I don't know every system, but
Right.
I think there's this white supremacist idea called like the folk spirit, where like some pretty Aryan or kind of racist white people think that you're only born into one ethnicity again and again and again. On the other hand, there are many tribes that are not quote unquote white that believe you're born into that tribe again and again and again. So I wouldn't say in every situation that it would be appropriate, but I would say in most, and to my understanding and my knowledge, I think that a god or a spirit most can be for everybody. I don't have the authority to speak on every situation
Yeah,
though.
I know there are in every religion you're going to get purists. Um, there's people who believe only Mexican Americans or Mexicans should work with Santa Muerte. There's people that believe only the Greeks should work with the Greek pantheons. Um, if you take our bodies out of it and you just look at our energy and the energy of the world around us, we're a part of everything. So if you believe in reincarnation, as I do and you do, what's the point of being born back into the same setting over and over and over? Unless you're supposed to learn something, but we're meant to experience different things. That's my opinion.
Mhm. For sure.
Um, yeah, Care Bear, we know you got your twins. It's funny. I do shows with Karen, and we've got one coming up this weekend on cancer. We do astrology tarot,
Mm.
and so you guys tune in for that. I just want to say that before she ran out.
I'd love to get a tarot reading from you sometime. I read runes myself. Um, and so the Elder Futhark specifically. But I'm okay. I'm okay at it. I wouldn't say that I'm like an expert, but I find the runes very helpful, and I think that I pull them out whenever I need to make. I know when I need to recalibrate and figure out what's going on in my life. I think they're extremely useful for that. I know almost nothing about tarot though. I don't know anything about it.
That's a great segue, by the way. I'm glad you said that because in August, I'm going to start an online tarot class, but it's very limited, you guys. There's only going to be 10 people. It's only $20 for the class. So if you're interested, let me know. It's going to be my first online class. I decided to put this StreamYard to some kind of use.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, I've been reading tarot for 40 years, Hunter.
That's a
Anytime
long
you
time.
Yeah, anytime I started when I was 15 because it was kind of metal and I came from a witch family.
Yeah.
Uh, so
So
yeah,
you were raised in a family of witches?
I was. Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Well, I come from a family of brujos, brujas, witches, psychics, spiritualists, Christian witches. Um, my mom was a Dianic witch forever, and now she's gone Catholic. At first, it kind of blew me away, but that was me being a gatekeeper. So if that's where she needs to be, then I support her in it. Um, it's not for me to say where you can find the divine to anybody. And you made a good point. Sometimes our interests change and who we are changes. And I believe that with the gods. Certain gods come into our lives at certain times to help us through certain things. Sometimes they stick around, sometimes they don't. But it seems like Kali and Santa Muerte and Morrigan and Hecate are sticking around.
There's
Oh,
a, I think there's a similar vibe between all of them. I think there's a similar vibe for sure.
Inner Transformation. Say hi, everybody. She's a crowd favorite. This is Aria.
Oh.
And the reason I showed her because she jumped on my crotch and like dug her knees in or nails in. I was like, not now. Yeah. So, does anybody have any further questions for Hunter? If you do, post them. I would love to. You've caused a couple people to look at things in a different way.
Oh,
Oh,
that's good.
Julie, this is awesome. It isn't just our learning, it is also for other people's learning, and they are part of our soul family helping us. Yeah.
I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah, I just, as far as location, I just don't see us being born into the same area over and over.
Because
So,
we need to experience life in a number of different ways, and we can't experience all of life if we remain in one context. We have to go through many contexts. Like I believe, and a lot of people who believe in reincarnation believe that we used to be rocks, and we used to be plants, we used to be animals, and we were that for a very long time before we finally were able to become human. And now we've been a human for so many different lifetimes. Now, I also don't see. I don't see how it would make sense or would be plausible that we're just born into one particular
mm,
group. Yeah.
no. What is your views on the afterlife and reincarnation? That was Karen's question, but she's about to bail.
Okay.
Um,
So I think I've covered the reincarnation area pretty
yeah,
extensively in
you
this. But
pretty
as
did.
far as other dimensions, so the we can go on and on about the astral realm. So the astral realm is a collection of universes, but they're not material universes. And the astral realm universes are three times as big as all the material universes combined. Think of it like the material universes as a basket, and then the hot air balloon is the astral, and
Ooh.
then the sky is the causal. And so we have material, astral, causal, and the quote unquote hells and the quote unquote heavens exist in the astral. And places that are like by the way, in my understanding, you have to do something very bad to go to a hell for any amount of time, and it's not forever, because a finite crime cannot have an infinite punishment. That would make God or the multiverse into a cruel, torturing tyrant. If somebody was sent to a hell forever, that doesn't make any sense. But
Agreed.
the hells, the quote unquote hells, they're kind of in an isolated part of the astral realm, and they're much more limited in what you can do, and the kind of energy that is this yogi coined the term lifetrons, which is more subtle than electrons. It is almost exclusively lifetrons in the astral realms. There's no material nature to them, but you can experience things as if it is material. But so the causal is what I would understand as the realm of the gods, and that's kind of the realm that's bigger than the astral. I think that we've been to astral hells and astral heavens a number of times as human beings, and I think that we'll go back. But the astral so the astral heavens are places of enjoyment, but there's also the side of the astral realm that's actually you reach a point of enlightenment here, and then you kind of graduate to that section of the astral realm to continue your progression, and then the progression back to Godhead, basically. But I have experienced very briefly the astral realms. Well, like once again, I can look into my third eye and see Kali in the astral realm, and she's just this huge figure that's emitting this light. That's just it's hard to describe. So I think that I'll go to Devi Loka, which is what we're gonna call her realm or whatever. I don't. I think that I might for a little bit, but I know that I am not enlightened enough to completely graduate from this planet. I have not.
Yeah.
I don't think. I honestly don't even think I'm close. But I think that I will go to Devi Loka for a time. But I'm gonna be returning back here. I'm almost positive about it. Does that help as far as the afterlife
Yeah,
goes?
that's a great summary. Pardon me. I have a desire for what I want to do after I pass from this life. Um, I work as a messenger now. I feel I've been a messenger before, and I want to continue that as a messenger afterwards. We hear of black dogs being sent from the goddess to help people out, or birds being sent as signs. I want to work with the gods after I pass in that capacity to continue on as a messenger and a guide. So um,
Yeah,
that's
and
my personal thing.
I I think there's a number of different beings that so quote unquote angelic like beings that kind of like deliver messages back and forth. I I can see I can see that happening for you. I don't think that that's unplausible. I think that that's very possible.
No, even among Hecate witches, when I say that, I kind of get that weird look, and I've actually had people say you're nuts, but they're not. They don't have that messenger mentality I have. They don't view things that way. That is my dream to do that. Whether it'll actually happen this time around, we'll wait and see. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Um, but thanks, Selena. Um, Janet, just subscribe to you. Yes, head on over to Hunter Salazar on YouTube, you guys. It doesn't look like there's any more questions. Yeah, Selena just posted your link. Make sure you subscribe to him, you guys.
Thank you.
Um, I am going to go ahead and end this for today. Hunter, thank you. And if you're open to it, I'd like to have you on in the future to talk about this more because it's just impossible to
Yeah, we
fit
can.
into.
Yeah, we can talk about different beings, different realms. But yeah, more than I thank you for having me, and yeah, I'll definitely like to be on in the future.
All right. I love it. You guys, I love you. I love you all. Thank you. Make sure you subscribe to Hunter. I love you, but I got to go eat. Bye.